What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here. This is Luke Cage, Season 1, Episode 2, Code of the Streets. I gotta admit, I did not see some of this stuff coming. Some of it seemed like, okay, yeah, I could see that coming maybe a couple episodes down the road. But to have some of this stuff happen in the second episode is really bold. And kind of gets me excited because, honestly, what happens at the end, I was expecting to happen maybe 3 or 4 episodes in. Like maybe save it for, I don't know. These Netflix Marvel shows have normally taken 3 or 4 episodes to really build up to, okay, stuff's about to start happening. This is the second episode, and by the end of it, I feel like stuff's about to start happening in the next few episodes. Like we finally have that moment where Luke Cage is like, okay, it's time to step up and do something. I'm like, it's never happened this early before. So on the one hand, I'm super excited because that's less, building up time. As good as some of that build up is in, Daredevil and Jessica Jones, sometimes it does get to drag on a little bit. You're like, okay, come on, let's get going. I want to get into the good stuff. We finally have it happening at the end of the second episode. Kind of makes me excited to see what's going to happen. Excited that I don't have to wait as long, but yet a little hesitant because now they've got one extra episode for the action stuff going on. So it makes me wonder if they're going to have too much time to do stuff. Because, in the other episodes, or in the other shows, it felt like that build-up time after it was over and after everything started getting going, it felt like, yeah, they had left the perfect amount of time for them to have great action, great story overall for the main storyline for the season. It felt like they had done a great job with all of that. In this one, we're already getting going into it, which means we have one extra episode to have the main storyline. I'm wondering if it's going to be too long to go with it. It depends on what they want to do with this series. Is it going to be just, okay, we have, Luke Cage taking on Cottonmouth for the whole season? Are they going to bring something else into it? Are we going to find out something else about Luke Cage's past? They have all these little stories that they could stretch out for an entire season, but some of them feel like, okay, these episodes are all an hour long, and I think there are 13 episodes in a season, and it kind of makes me wonder, will I be able to watch 11 more episodes at an hour an episode of just Luke Cage, yeah, Mortal Kombat, Luke Cage taking on Cottonmouth and his gang? Is that going to be enough, just that story alone, to fill the rest of the season? Probably not. I feel like there's going to be some other story that pops up maybe halfway through the season that we have to deal with. Maybe whoever Shades is working for that's supplying Cottonmouth with his stuff, maybe he'll pop up at some point. They'll pop up. Something to go along with his cousin. I think her name's Maria. I'm still getting names. Some of them stand out a bit more. Obviously, Cottonmouth is one. It's just like, it's so weird. I'm gonna remember that one. But the politician woman who's Cottonmouth's cousin, I feel like her storyline's going to be involved somehow. So anyway, that's just talking about the rest of the season. As far as this episode goes, there's a lot of good stuff in it. Once again, a few episodes that drag on maybe a little bit longer than they need to. Then some of them, are perfectly timed. But it's those few scenes where I'm just like, okay, I'm starting to lose focus here. Like, it needs to kind of cut off at some points. But, it's not too bad. It just drags on a little bit in the first couple episodes. I know that. I know I have to get into third or fourth episode before it really starts to get good and really starts to cut out a lot of that holding on these scenes that just take too long. But anyway, we learn a bit more about Pop in this one and his history with Cottonmouth and with Chico's dad. Apparently they were like little trio going on, ruling the streets pretty much when he was younger. And it gives a good backstory for Pop. It's more than just, okay, he's just Luke Cage's father figure. No, he actually has connection to the bad guy as well. And, it was a good little backstory. I like seeing the flashbacks. I like how they shot the flashbacks, too, because, the music that goes along with it, it really fits well with the atmosphere they've got going on. A lot of the music and the not filmography. What am I looking for? Cinematography. A lot of that is very well done in this, and it's different Obviously, the music is different, but even the cinematography in this is different than Jessica Jones and Daredevil. Daredevil is very dark and Batman-like. It's shot mainly in the dark, and even from his point of view, it's shot mainly in the dark because he's blind, so it makes sense. Jessica Jones wasn't necessarily. It was obviously dark, but it was more like dark and gritty. Like you could see this was more evil based than it was. Oh, yeah, we're dark because he lives in darkness. He can't see anything. It was more like this is dark, but there's also a lot of evil here. There's a lot of dark, gruesome stuff going on, like emotionally, psychologically, all that stuff. It was a much different feel. This one, it's all these shows are pretty much dark, but this one feels a bit more dark with a bit of like I don't even know what to call it. It's like smoother, and maybe that's just because they've been playing a lot of R&B in some of these club scenes. But like it just feels like the cinematography is smoother. It's a bit more clean. It's a bit more personal. It's really hard to explain, but it feels unique to this show, and that's very, very, very good that they can do that. They can take these shows which have similar premises, they're all set in New York, they're all set on the streets, and yet they all feel so different. They all feel secluded to their own little world. And I think they are set in different parts of New York, so that's another thing that plays into its advantage. But it's incredible when you really, obviously I'm not huge into cinematography or anything like that. Like I'm sure somebody who's really into it could tell you more detail about what they're doing. But from my point of view, because I'm an amateur of this stuff, I know something feels different about it. I know it's different than Jessica Jones and Daredevil, and the way it's shot and the music that's playing. It's all different, but yet that similar feel of this is New York. This is the streets of New York. So yeah, that was really good. A lot of it in this episode, a lot of it was basically you're learning more about these characters. You're learning more about the main bad guy. You're learning more about Pop. You're learning a bit more about Luke Cage. You're learning a bit more about Misty, which she's got to be a character from a comic book, right? I mean, Misty Knight. Come on. It's such a pun. But anyway, but we're learning more about these characters. And whenever that final scene happens at the barbershop, whenever Tone shows up and shoots the place up, that really added a lot to it. Because first of all, I don't think Chico is dead because they wheeled him out with a respirator, or I think that's what it's called, on his face. So I think he is still alive, which may play in a bit more to the main story. But the main thing is Pop's dead now. And I said in the last episode, I thought he was kind of going to be the father figure for Luke Cage, which he is. But most of the time, it's like, when I see a father figure in a show like this, I expect him to pop up with bits of information for Luke every now and then. I didn't expect him to be a main character, but I expected him to, Luke Cage is struggling with this one episode, he goes to see Pop, and Pop helps him out. Instead, it turns into a bit more of like a typical superhero story where, like Batman loses his parents, or Peter Parker loses his uncle, who's a father figure to him. Similar thing here, he loses Pop, but the interesting thing about it is because Pop also has a relationship with the main bad guy, Cottonmouth, that also adds a bit more emotion there because, Tone feels like he's all big and bad because he just shot this place up and, thinks he took out Chico for Cottonmouth and did all this work for him. And Shades, I kind of like Shades as a bad guy now because you can see where he's a bit more, I don't want to say grounded, but you can see he's a bit more of a thinker than some of these guys are. Tone's just like, I heard Chico's here. I'm gonna go do this for Cottonmouth. Shoots the place up. And Shades is just like, maybe you need to wait until he comes outside. Maybe you need to hold on for a second and wait. He's actually thinking things through, and I feel like he's gonna be a bit more of a main bad guy than Cottonmouth will be. I think it feels like they're setting that up to where he's kind of in the background right now. I think he's gonna have a moment where he steps up and he is a lot more tough to take out than we originally thought. But the scene up on the roof where Tone tells Cottonmouth what happened and tells him that Pop died, and then all of a sudden this guy who told them that Chico was at the barbershop shows up. Such a weird little thing. Like, I think I'm pretty sure he was in Daredevil. Like, he looked familiar, and I can't remember where from. I think he was in Daredevil as, like, one of the henchmen there. And he even says at the end of the conversation, "Man, I'm going back to Hell's Kitchen. You guys are crazy here." But he shows up and he's just like, "Where's my money?" And the way that Cottonmouth reacts is just absolutely brilliant because he's got such a calm nature about him that can flip on a dime and just all of a sudden he's throwing Tone off the side of the building onto a car. It's like that's the type of villain he is, and it's such a brilliant setup because the guy who plays Cottonmouth, he's really good at doing that. He's really good at 1 second just like, "So, Tone told you that he was going to pay you, huh?" And she's like, "Yeah." She's like, "Okay." Grabs him, tosses him up. "Your pay's down there with Tone, Mr. Barrett." And I'm just like, holy crap, where did he come from? Like, where was this guy 2 seconds ago? He seemed so calm. But it's a brilliant little scene up on the roof, and then you also have a moment where you see Luke Cage mourning the death of Pop, and then you see Cottonmouth mourning the death of Pop. You can see there's that connection there. You know, like, not necessarily a connection where, like, if you ever saw Avatar: The Last Airbender, the cartoon series, you could tell there was a connection between the main character and the main villain in the first season because they had similar stories. You could see that neither of them are necessarily like, I don't know what the best way to describe it is. It's not like they are 100% similar, but they have similar stories to them, which leads to, oh, they have a connection through their backstories, through what happened to them in the past. I'm kind of wondering if that's what they're setting up here. The way it was shot, the way it was edited, made it kind of feel like that. You know, like, oh, they both mourn the death of Pop. It makes it feel like maybe there will be some sort of connection later on that, you know, they'll be able to recognize and sort of work through. I don't know if that's what they're setting up. I don't know if that's just, if that's just supposed to be a scene that's like, this is how much of a good guy Pop was, that, you know, everybody seems to be mourning him right now. But anyway, just some speculation on my part of what might be going on there. The other interesting thing that happened in this episode was Luke Cage finally got to see Misty Knight at her actual job. You know, she said she was an auditor in the last one, and then he finally finds out that she's a detective in this one. We get to see a bit more of her, too. They're kind of making her a bit more of a main character than I thought she'd be. I thought she was just going to be a side character, you know, romantic interest for Luke Cage. She's turning out to be a pretty main character, you know, like actually playing into the main story a lot. She goes and plays basketball with some guys, you know, shows that she can play just like they can to get some information out of them. Her partner, I like the relationship they have because you can see where she's kind of a bit more in the streets. She knows these people. She knows how they talk, that type of thing. You can see that her partner, Scarf, Raphael, I don't know what to call him yet, but he's kind of like, I'm not going to get involved with this. You know, she says she's going to play hoops to get information, but if she loses, then he gets a get out of jail free card for any non-violent felony. He's like, we're not doing that. And she looks at him like, seriously? Like, oh, okay. You know, so it's fun to see that little dynamic that they've got going on. It makes a good team out of them. She knows the streets a bit more than he does, but he seems more like the actual, like he seems like a cop who knows the law and will crack down hard on it. So it's a nice little dynamic going back and forth. But overall, I mean, it really is setting up well for the rest of the season. That final scene, you know, they start off showing Luke Cage standing in front of some sort of building. Crispus Attucks was the name that was being put up there for the Harlem Renaissance thing they've got going on. And, guy's got a gun to the back of his head. They go back to that scene at the end, and all of a sudden his words mean so much more now. Like, once you find out that Pop died, it's like, okay, now I know why he's saying it's been a long day. And just the speech that he gives him is just so moving and emotional that you really do believe that's exactly what he feels. He feels like this man, Attucks, he started a movement. You know, he did something. He moved forward. And Pop did the same thing. He was starting something. What was Luke Cage doing? He's like, I was doing nothing. I was just watching him. You really feel that. And you feel like he feels moved to go do something now. He feels like he needs to do something to help contribute to Pop's vision of what he was trying to do. So it wasn't the best scene. You know, like the speech was great, But after that, whenever the kid, the kid still got the gun pointed on him, he grabs it because he's like, shoot me, and the kid won't do it, so he grabs it, I'll do it myself, and shoots himself in the stomach, and the bullet just bounces off, which is cool. But because it was such an emotional scene, watching the kid kind of freak out and run away scared was a bit funny to me. So it was like, it didn't really fit with the rest of the speech and stuff. Like, it would have been more emotional, I think, if it was like the kid had shot him and then was like, holy crap, that type of thing. But to see him just sort of blow up on the kid and then freak the kid out by shooting himself in the stomach, just like, okay, it was a bit humorous compared to the rest of the scene, so it didn't fit in as well, but it was still good. It was still a good moment. And, overall, like I said, great setup for the rest of the season. So, a lot of interesting side stories, a lot of interesting main stories going on. We'll see where it all goes. We'll see how it all connects, and mainly I'm just excited to see what the main plot for the entire season is going to be about. So, a lot of good stuff. Really looking forward to it. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Leave a like and subscribe for future Luke Cage reviews, and I'll see you at the next one. Peace out.